Preach the gospel in the lands beyond you. 2 Corinthians 10 verse 16, so that we may preach the gospel in lands beyond you without boasting of work already done in another's area of influence. Paul was an apostle, and he planted the church in Corinth. One of the reasons Paul wrote Corinthians was to respond to certain critics and false teachers who were talking poorly of the apostle and attempting to ruin his reputation. If someone were trying to ruin your reputation, how might you respond? If you had to confront the gossipers, critics, and the people listening to this gossip, what would you say? This section of Paul's letter to the Corinthians is a personal defense of his ministry. Interestingly, Paul does not defend his reputation by boasting in himself, but by boasting in the Lord. In verses 17 to 18, Paul says, "Let the one who boasts boast in the Lord, for it is not the one who commends himself who is approved, but the one whom the Lord commends." Paul could have said many things. He had quite a long list of qualifications, and he could have just whipped that out to show that he was trustworthy, learned, and faithful. Instead, he said, "Let the one who boasts boast in the Lord." The Lord approves those he commends. People will always have something to say, but what encouragement we are left with. As Christians, our defense is to boast in the Lord, not in ourselves. God holds the universe. Why might Paul even defend himself? Well, there will always be gossipers, and the advice we typically tell one another is to leave them be. But Paul defended his ministry so that their faith would increase. But our hope is that as your faith increases, our area of influence among you may be greatly enlarged, so that we may preach the gospel in lands beyond you, without boasting of work already done in another area of influence. So Paul's defense was not to boast in himself, but an encouragement that the Lord commends those he approves. And as the Lord gave Paul the faith to follow him, making disciples by planting churches in Asia and Europe, the Lord would also give the Corinthians the faith to influence more people with the gospel, first in their area of influence and then in lands beyond. What is your area of influence? How can you flood this area with the gospel? Is the Lord leading you to lands beyond? As your faith increases, I hope you might be able to follow to new places where the same work of spreading the gospel might continue. This is Tim, to the ends, by his grace and for his glory.